The phone call came at 7:42 on a Tuesday morning in March of 2019, and Carl Reichert knew from the first 3 words that his day was about to go sideways. "Mr. Reichert, this is Stan Wilson from Wilson Equipment in Hutchinson." Carl was sitting at his kitchen table with his second cup of coffee, listening to the farm radio report and reading grain futures on his phone. At 71 years old, he'd learned that calls from implement dealers before 8 in the morning were never good news. "Morning, Stan." "Sir, I'm calling to confirm delivery of your 2 John Deere 6155R tractors. We have you scheduled for next Friday, March 22nd. I wanted to touch base about timing, since we'll need to coordinate the trade-in of your existing 4440s. Carl felt the floor tilt slightly beneath his chair. "Stan, I need you to slow down. What tractors are you talking about?" There was a pause, background noise of a dealership coming to life, mechanics arriving, coffee brewing. "The 2 6155Rs, sir. The order came through our system yesterday afternoon. Full cab packages, GPS guidance ready, mechanical front-wheel drive, loader packages on both units. With the trade allowance on your 4440s and John Deere financial approval, you're looking at $296,000 total financed over 7 years at 4.9%. The coffee in Carl's stomach turned cold and sour. "Stan, listen to me very carefully. I did not authorize this purchase. I did not approve any financing. I need you to put a hold on that entire order right now. Do not prep those tractors. Do not process any paperwork. Do you understand?" "Sir, The order has your farm's name and tax ID. It came from an email address we have on file." Carl closed his eyes. He knew that email address. Amy had set it up 3 years ago for farm business correspondence. "I understand, Stan, but I'm telling you as the owner of this farm that this order was not authorized by me. Hold everything. I'll call you back within 2 hours." He hung up before Stan could protest. For a long moment, Carl just sat there, staring at his father's photograph on the wall above the kitchen sideboard. Walter Reichert, 1922 to 2003, looking stern and weathered in a picture taken sometime in the 1970s. The same man who taught Carl that debt was a millstone that could drown you if you weren't careful. Carl stood slowly, knees protesting the way they did every morning now, and walked through the mudroom. He pulled on his work jacket against the March cold, the wind cutting across the farmyard, carrying the smell of wet earth and the promise of spring planting. His daughter Amy was already in the main machine shed. Of course she was. Amy had been out working him for 3 years now, showing up before dawn and staying until after dark, running the daily operations of their 800-acre farm with a competence that both impressed and worried Carl. She was bent over the parts washer, cleaning hydraulic fittings for the planter, her dark hair pulled back in the same ponytail she'd worn since high school. 28 years old, wearing Carhartt overalls and work boots caked with yesterday's mud. "Amy." She looked up, and Carl saw it immediately in her face. The defensive set of her jaw, the slight lift of her chin, the way her shoulders tensed like she was preparing for impact. "We need to talk. Right now. I'm in the middle of cleaning these fittings for I just got a call from Stan Wilson. He wanted to confirm delivery of 2 John Deere 6155R tractors that I apparently ordered last night." Amy straightened up slowly, wiping her hands on a shop rag. She met his eyes and didn't look away. "We need them, Dad." "Did you place that order?" "Yes." The single word hung between them like a thrown punch. "Without talking to me." Her face flushed red. "I've been trying to talk to you about this for 2 years. Every single time I bring it up, you shut me down. You won't even have the conversation. So you went behind my back and put this farm $300,000 in debt. It's not behind your back when I've been begging for this discussion since 2017. You don't make a $300,000 decision without the person whose name is on the deed. The words came out harsher than Carl intended, and he saw them land like a slap. Amy's face went from red to pale. "Right," she said quietly, "because I'm just the hired help who works here 7 days a week. I'm just the one who runs 90% of the daily operations, while you spend 3 hours every morning drinking coffee and reading grain reports. I'm just the person Mum told you 3 years ago you needed to start transitioning management to. But I'm still just the help, aren't I?" "That's not what I meant." "That's exactly what you meant." She threw the rag down on the workbench with enough force that a wrench bounced. "You want me to work like I own this place, but the second I try to make an actual management decision, you pull the my names on the deed card." Carl felt his own anger rising to meet hers, but he forced it down. Getting angry wouldn't help. Getting angry would just make this worse. "Come up to the house. We're going to discuss this properly like adults, and then I'm calling Stan Wilson and cancelling that order." "Dad, please don't." "That's not a request, Amy. Come to the house now." He turned and walked out, not waiting to see if she followed. "Now, before we go any further, I need you to understand something critical about this story. This isn't about a stubborn old farmer who refuses to modernize, and it's not about a disrespectful young person who doesn't value tradition. This is about two people who both love their farm, who both want to see it succeed, who both have valid concerns and legitimate points, and who are about to have the most important conversation of their lives about what it actually means to survive in modern agriculture. By the time this story is over, you're going to see why one of them was about to make a catastrophic mistake. And you're going to learn more about farm economics and family business than any business school could teach you. Hit that subscribe button right now, because what happens next is going to challenge everything you think you know about farming, debt, and generational succession. They sat at the kitchen table 20 minutes later, the same oak table where Carl's father had made farm decisions for 30 years before him, the same table where Carl had signed his marriage license in 1970, the same table where he'd sat with the banker in 1985 and begged for more time before foreclosure. Amy had her laptop open. She'd come prepared, which told Carl she'd been planning this confrontation. Spreadsheets, maintenance records, repair cost analyses, all of it organized and ready. She was her mother's daughter. Margaret had always been the organized one, the record keeper, the one who could look at numbers and see patterns Carl missed. "Okay," Amy said, her voice controlled now, professional. "Let me show you why we need to upgrade." She pulled up a spreadsheet. "Last year, we spent $14,360 on repairs and parts for the two 4440s. The year before that, $12,800. The year before that, $11,400. Average over the last 5 years is $12,900 per year." Carl leaned back in his chair. "I do most of the work myself. That's parts cost, not labor." "Right, which brings me to my next point." Another spreadsheet. "Last year, you logged 87 hours doing repairs and maintenance on those tractors. At a conservative value of $50 per hour for your time, that's another $4,300. So we're actually at $17,500 per year total cost. Farming is maintaining equipment, Amy. That's part of the job. It's part of the job when the equipment is worth maintaining. But Dad, look at this." She pulled up another sheet. The 4440s are from 1987 and 1989. They're 32 and 30 years old. Combined, they have over 14,000 hours. You've rebuilt both engines, replaced both transmissions, overhauled the hydraulic systems 3 times, replaced clutches, final drives. You've essentially rebuilt these tractors twice. And they still run. Barely. We had 6 breakdowns last year. 6 times we had to stop fieldwork and spend hours or days fixing something that should have just worked. Do you remember last April when your 4440 threw a hydraulic line in the middle of planting and we lost 3 days? Carl remembered. They'd been racing a weather window, and the breakdown had cost them their optimal planting time for 80 acres of soybeans. Or August, when my tractor developed an electrical problem and we had to pull it out of the field during wheat harvest. He remembered that too. They'd limped through harvest with one tractor while he troubleshot a charging system problem on the other. Amy pulled up another spreadsheet. These new 6155Rs, they're 155 horsepower compared to the 4440's 85. They're GPS ready for precision agriculture. They have modern hydraulics that can run our newer implements properly. They have cab comfort, so you're not beating yourself up in a 40-year-old tractor with no suspension. And they cost $300,000. $296,000 financed over 7 years at 4.9%. The payment is $4,200 per month. Carl felt his chest tighten. $4,200 a month. $50,400 a year. Every year. For 7 years. Whether the crop was good or bad, whether it rained or not, whether prices held or crashed. Amy, that's $50,000 a year. Which is less than we're losing in opportunity costs, downtime, and reduced efficiency with 30-year-old equipment. We're not losing $50,000 a year. We're spending $13,000 on parts and my time. We're losing planting and harvesting windows to breakdowns. We're losing yield potential because we can't use precision agriculture technology that requires GPS-capable tractors. We're losing efficiency because the 4440s are slow and underpowered for some of our newer implements. She wasn't wrong about any of it. Carl knew she wasn't wrong. The old tractors were costing them time and efficiency and opportunities, but she was missing something crucial. Something he'd learned the hard way 35 years ago. You know what we'd really be losing? Carl said quietly. Our independence, our safety net, our ability to survive a bad year. Dad, the minute we sign that financing agreement, we don't own this farm anymore. John Deere Financial does. We're not farming for ourselves. We're farming to make equipment payments. That's not how modern agriculture works. Everyone finances equipment. It's standard business practice. Standard business practice is why 15 of our neighbors have sold out in the last 10 years. Amy shook her head. Those farmers sold out because they overextended on land purchases or couldn't adapt to changing markets, not because they financed equipment. Amy, can I show you something? Carl stood and went to the hutch in the corner of the kitchen. He pulled out a folder from the bottom drawer, one he hadn't looked at in years, but had never thrown away. He opened it on the table between them. If you're learning something from this family argument, I need you to do me a favor right now. Hit that like button and drop a comment telling me whose side you're on, because this is about to get more complicated, and I want to know if you think the father is being stubborn or the daughter is being reckless. This is 1984, Carl said, pointing to a yellowed ledger page. I was 36 years old. Farm was doing well. We'd had 3 good years in a row. I had 640 acres by then, and I thought I was smart, thought I had it figured out. He pulled out a contract, the paper brittle with age, went to the John Deere dealer in April, bought a new 4650, beautiful tractor, 175 horsepower, air-conditioned cab, power shift transmission, state-of-the-art for 1984. Dad, I know this story. No, you don't. Not the whole story. He pulled out another sheet. $90,000. Financed over 5 years at 9.2%. Monthly payment was $1,847. Amy looked at the numbers, and Carl saw her doing the math. That's over $22,000 a year. Every month, whether I had money or not, I owed the bank $1,847. He pulled out another sheet. This one a bank statement from December 1985. This is 18 months later. The balance showed negative $863. What happened? What happened is that 1985 was the worst drought Kansas had seen in 40 years. Wheat came in at 9 bushels per acre, when we needed 35 just to break even. Milo crop was a complete failure. Soybeans yielded 12 bushels when we'd budgeted for 40. He pulled out a crop insurance statement. We got about $18,000 from crop insurance, nowhere near enough to cover our costs and that equipment payment. So you sold the tractor? I tried to sell the tractor, but used equipment values had crashed because everyone else was trying to sell too. Dealer offered me $55,000. I owed $74,000. I was upside down by $19,000 on a tractor I'd owned for less than 2 years. Carl's voice was steady, but the memory still hurt. I went to the bank in November, told them I couldn't make my payments, told them I'd sell the tractor for whatever I could get. They said if I sold it for $55,000, I'd still owe them $19,000 plus the interest that would keep accruing, and I couldn't pay it. What did you do? I found a farmer in Missouri who was in better shape than me. He paid $62,000 cash. I signed over the title, sent the bank their $74,000 plus the 3 months of missed payments, walked away owing the bank $4,000 that I didn't have. He pulled out another statement. I borrowed that $4,000 from your grandfather, paid him back over the next 2 years at $100 a month. Amy was quiet, staring at the papers. I bought a used 4020 to replace the 4650, 20-year-old tractor I got for $8,000. It ran for another 15 years before I replaced it with the first 4440. Carl gathered the papers back into the folder. I made myself a promise standing in this kitchen on Christmas Eve 1985. Your mom was 6 months pregnant with you. We had $1,700 in the bank and a farm we'd almost lost. I promised myself I would never, ever finance farm equipment again. He looked at his daughter. That promise has held for 34 years. It's the reason we still have this farm. Amy was quiet for a long moment, staring at her laptop screen. I understand what happened to you, she said finally. But Dad, that was 35 years ago. Financing is different now. Interest rates are lower. Crop insurance is better. Risk management tools exist that didn't exist in 1985. Drought exists the same as it did in 1985. Markets crash the same way. Bad years happen the same way. But we're better positioned to handle them now. We have more acres, better yields, crop insurance that actually covers our costs. Carl pulled up his own spreadsheet on his phone, something he'd put together last night after Amy had raised this issue for the 10th time. We had $78,300 in our operating account as of last week. No debt, no payments, no fixed costs beyond land taxes and insurance. He turned the phone so she could see. That $78,000 is our safety net. That's what lets us survive a year like 1985 or 2012 or any of the other bad years we've seen. If we finance those tractors, we're committing $50,000 a year to equipment payments. First bad year, that safety net is gone. Or we could use that safety net to invest in equipment that makes us more productive and competitive. We're not competing with anyone, Amy. We're trying to survive long enough to hand this farm to you, and I'm trying to make sure there's still a farm to hand to my kids someday. The words hung between them, heavy with implication. Carl took a breath. What if I told you there's a different way? A way to upgrade our equipment without taking on $300,000 in debt? Amy looked at him skeptically. I'm listening. Now I want to ask you something, and I really want you to think about it before you answer in the comments. If you were in Carl's position, would you compromise on a principle you've held for 35 years? Or would you stand firm, even if it meant conflict with your daughter? Give me 2 weeks, Carl said. Don't cancel the order yet, but don't let Stan Wilson deliver anything either. Just give me 2 weeks to show you an alternative. What kind of alternative? Trust me for 2 weeks. If I can't show you something that makes sense, We'll talk about your plan again." Amy studied his face. "You're not going to try to talk me into keeping the 4440s, are you?" "No, I agree we need different equipment. I just don't agree we need to finance it." "How are you going to buy newer tractors without financing?" "Let me work on it. 2 weeks." Amy closed her laptop slowly. "Fine, 2 weeks, but Dad, if you can't show me a real solution, we need to have a serious conversation about succession planning, because I can't run this farm long-term with equipment that's older than I am." Fair enough." Carl spent the next 3 days doing something he hadn't done in years, shopping for used equipment. He started online, searching auction results, classified ads, equipment dealers in Kansas, Oklahoma, Missouri, looking for tractors in the 100 to 130 horsepower range. Nothing brand new, but nothing ancient either. 10 to 15 years old, well-maintained, reasonable hours. He found the market was better than he expected. The push for bigger and newer equipment meant a lot of good mid-sized tractors were available at prices that didn't require financing. On Thursday, he drove to an equipment auction in Salina, watched a 2008 John Deere 7430 sell for $54,000. Premium tractor, one owner, only 1,300 hours, full maintenance records, worth $70,000 easy in a dealer lot. On Friday, he called a farmer in southwest Kansas who was downsizing. The man had a 2010 case IH Magnum 215 he was selling, 115 horsepower, less than 1,000 hours, excellent condition. Asking price was $60,000. On Saturday, Carl drove to see the case. Brought along Jim Hutchins, a mechanic friend who'd been in the business for 40 years. They went over the tractor with the kind of attention most people reserved for buying a house. Engine compression, good. Hydraulics, clean and responsive. Transmission, smooth through all ranges. Electrical, everything worked. Tires, 70%. Cab, well maintained. Jim gave Carl a thumbs up. "Make him an offer," Jim said on the drive back. "That's a $65,000 tractor for 60. Maybe you can get him down to 55. Carl offered 57,000. The seller countered at 59. They settled at 58,000, one tractor down. On Monday, Carl went to another auction in McPherson. This time he was bidding. A 2009 John Deere 7330 came up. 1,200 hours, 2 owners, good maintenance history. Some wear on the seat, a few scratches on the hood, but mechanically solid. Bidding started at 30,000. Carl waited while 2 other bidders pushed it to 45. When they stopped, he raised his card, 46,000. 47 from someone else, 48 from Carl. Silence. Going once, going twice, sold to bidder 147 for $48,000. 2 tractors. Total investment, $106,000. Carl could pay cash and still have his safety net intact. He brought Amy out to the machine shed on Wednesday afternoon. The Case IH and the John Deere were parked side by side, still dusty from transport. Amy walked around them slowly, checking details, looking at hour meters, opening cab doors. "Where did these come from?" "Bought the Case from a retiring farmer near Garden City. Bought the John Deere at an auction in McPherson on Monday. How much?" $106,000 for both. Paid cash. We've got about $65,000 left in operating account. She climbed into the John Deere, started it up, listened to the engine, cycled the hydraulics, checked the transmission. Then she did the same with the Case. Carl waited, watching his daughter evaluate the equipment with the competence he'd taught her. Finally, she climbed down and stood next to him. "These are good tractors," she said, "but they're not new." "No, they're 10 and 15 years old, but they're 20 years newer than what we've been running. They'll handle our implements. They're not GPS ready yet, but we can retrofit that for about $8,000 per tractor if we want to." Amy was quiet for a moment. "You spent our entire operating reserve. Most of it. But we don't have any debt, no payments. These tractors are ours. And in 15 years, we'll be right back where we started. Maybe. But in 15 years, we'll have saved over $750,000 in equipment payments. That's money we can use to actually buy land, or expand the operation, or have as security when bad years come. She walked around the tractors again, and Carl could see her working through it, the compromise between what she wanted and what he could accept, the balance between progress and security. "What about the 4440s?" she asked. "Auction next month. Should get 15 to 20,000 for both. Put that back into the operating account." Amy leaned against the John Deere's front tire. "This isn't what I wanted." "I know. I wanted us to farm like a modern operation, to have the technology and equipment that let us compete. We can retrofit GPS. We can add technology, but we do it without debt." She looked at him. "Why is that so important to you?" "Really?" Carl thought about how to explain it. About Christmas Eve, 1985. About the terror of owing money you couldn't pay. About watching neighbors lose everything because one bad year crushed them under debt they'd taken on in good years. "Because I've seen what debt does," he said finally. "I've seen it destroy good farmers, good people, families that had been farming for generations, and I promised myself I'd never let it destroy us." Amy nodded slowly. "These are good tractors. Not what I would have chosen, but they'll work. I'll take that. But Dad, we need to have a bigger conversation about succession, about when I actually get to make the decisions instead of just implementing yours." "You're right. We do need to have that conversation." "When?" "Soon, before planting. Your mom and I have been talking to a lawyer about succession planning. We need to include you in those conversations." That surprised her. "You've been talking to a lawyer?" "For 6 months, about transitioning management to you gradually, about setting up the farm as an LLC with you as partial owner, about making sure you're protected if something happens to me." Amy's eyes got bright. "Why didn't you tell me?" "Because I wanted to have answers before I started the conversation. Wanted to know what was possible before I made promises I couldn't keep." She wiped at her eyes with the back of her hand. "I thought you didn't trust me." "I trust you completely. I just don't trust debt." "E.T. Here's what I need you to understand about this resolution. Carl didn't win. Amy didn't win. They found a compromise that neither one of them wanted, but both of them could live with. That's what succession in family farming actually looks like. Not perfect solutions, not getting everything you want, just finding a way forward that keeps the farm intact and the family together. If this story resonates with you, if you've been in a similar situation with parents or children or business partners, drop a comment and tell me how you handled it. Because this is real life, not a business textbook. They spent the rest of March getting the new tractors ready for planting, adding GPS receivers, updating hydraulic couplers, making sure everything worked with their existing implements. The 4440s went to auction in mid-April. They sold for $17,000 combined, which put some money back in the reserve. Planting season came and went smoothly. Both new tractors ran without problems, no breakdowns, no 3-day delays, no scrambling for parts for obsolete equipment. In June, the weather turned dry, then drier. By July, it was clear they were heading into a serious drought. All across Kansas, farmers watched projected yields drop. Wheat that had looked promising in April was burning up in the fields. Milo was stressed, soybeans were struggling. And all across Kansas, farmers with equipment payments were starting to panic. Carl and Amy's neighbor, Todd Benson, who farmed 1,200 acres, had bought 2 new Case IH tractors and a combine the previous year. Over $400,000 in equipment financing. His monthly payments were running $6,200. Todd stopped by in early August, ostensibly to check on how Carl and Amy's crops were looking. "How are you guys doing?" he asked. "Not great," Carl admitted. "Probably down 40% on yield projections." "Same here, maybe worse." Todd looked at the ground. "I don't know if I can make my equipment payments this year. I'm already 2 months behind. Bank's not happy." Carl didn't know what to say. "Have you talked to them about restructuring?" "They're not interested. They're talking about taking the equipment back." After Todd left, Amy came and stood next to Carl, watching their neighbor's truck disappear down the road. "That could have been us," she said quietly. "Yeah. If I'd ordered those tractors. If you hadn't cancelled, we'd be in the same position as Todd right now." Carl put his arm around his daughter's shoulders. "But we're not. We're going to have a bad year, but we'll survive it. I'm sorry I went behind your back. I'm sorry I didn't explain earlier why I was so opposed to financing. I understand now. Took me seeing Todd's situation, but I understand." The final numbers for 2019 came in at the end of the year. Yields were down 43%. Crop income was down 48%. It was the second worst year Carl had experienced in 46 years of farming, but because they had no equipment debt, no fixed payments beyond land taxes and insurance, they survived. Made enough to cover costs, put a little in savings, stay operational. Todd Benson wasn't so lucky. The bank repossessed his equipment in October. He struggled through 2020 with rented equipment, but when that year came in mediocre, he couldn't hold on. Sold out to a corporate farm operation in March 2021. 3 years later, in the spring of 2022, Carl officially retired from active farming. He transferred the farm to an LLC with Amy as managing member and majority owner. He kept a small percentage for retirement income, but the operation was hers now. They'd added one more used tractor by then, a 2014 John Deere 6130R that Amy bought at auction for $68,000 cash. Good tractor, low hours, exactly what they needed. The equipment strategy had held: buy used, pay cash, maintain well, upgrade when necessary but never finance. The farm had survived, and more importantly, the relationship between father and daughter had survived. Amy tells young farmers now about the day she ordered 2 John Deeres without permission, and her father cancelled the order. "I thought I was right," she says. "I had the spreadsheets to prove it. The analysis was solid, the financing was available, everything looked perfect on paper. But my dad understood something I didn't, that in farming, perfect on paper doesn't mean safe in reality. That debt is risk. That the ability to survive bad years matters more than maximizing efficiency in good years." I learned more from him cancelling that order than I learned in 4 years of agricultural business school. So here's the truth that nobody in agricultural financing wants you to hear. The equipment dealers, the manufacturers, the finance companies, they all make money when you borrow. They all benefit when you upgrade. They all want you to believe that the newest, most expensive equipment is the path to success. But Carl Reichert proved something different. He proved that owning older equipment outright is safer than financing new equipment. That financial independence matters more than having the latest technology. That survival beats efficiency when the years turn bad. The daughter ordered 2 John Deeres. The dad called the dealer and cancelled before delivery. And that phone call saved their farm. If this story taught you something about farming, family business, or financial wisdom, I need you to do 3 things. First, subscribe to this channel for more real stories about farming families who survived by thinking different. Second, share this video with someone who's feeling pressure to finance equipment they're not sure they can afford. Third, drop a comment answering this. Have you ever had to say no to someone you love because you knew they were making a mistake? How did it turn out? Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one.